up with the Joneses, they are clearly blessed. They sow some big seed, he takes care of the rest. Thousands of creaseless suits, a sea of huge hats, nodding and waving, pat themselves on the back. The band you best right now, we're looking good for the sacred cow. Upright and early, leave their 7-bedroom home, drive to the church they call the Superdome. Singing and dancing, arrow stroking begins, tithing to buy him their favorite thing. The band you best right now, we're looking good for the sacred cow. Perfected smiles and muscular jaws hide from exposure the slightest flaws. Broadcast on TV, his cliche boy, twisting the scriptures, his delight and joy. Best life now, we're looking good for the sacred cow. The band you best life now, we're looking good for the sacred cow.
Good evening, everybody. Sorry, momentarily perplexed there. I don't know why. There you go. The music you were listening to was a song called Sacred Cow, which I wrote, a long time ago. I wrote that probably in 1997. And then finally got round to putting it on a record in 2013, at the very end of my Cubase period. So the great guitar solo there was played by a London and international session terrific guitar player by the name of Tim Rose. He currently works with people like Toya Wilcox and a whole host of other jazz greats. But he is a terrific guitar player. I've known him for, gosh, nearly 30 years. And I've worked with him a lot in those years. We both played in one of the best youth big bands in Europe at the time, in the the late 80s, early 90s. I played drums and he played guitar. And he's a terrific guitar player. He's a great friend of mine. And so that song was a little bit of a sideswipe at televangelists, as you might well have gathered by the lyrical content. Me and my usual sarcasm. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed it. And I think the first question of the day is, am I contagious? No, I don't think so. I'm still very much unwell. That's definitely so. I slept for Friday night. I think I slept for 13 hours straight on Friday night, and then last night was a not very pleasant night. My daughter woke up spectacularly vomiting everywhere, and she pretty much vomited on everybody's beds, which was great because that meant nobody had anywhere to sleep. So I think I managed about 2.5 hours sleep last night at best. My wife did a lot worse because she had to get all the bedding off and get it all cleaned up and everything else, and the whole house stunk of vomit. So we've had windows open, doors open, every possible thing open to try and get rid of the smell. Excuse me, you're going to have to excuse my coughing and spluttering and snuffling and snorting. That's just the way it is. So I'm going to apologize now so that I don't have to do it every time it happens. And I have my little laptop working. I say working. It is kind of working. And it's got the chat on it, and I've increased the text size so I can actually read it this time, because I think the last time the text was really minute. I don't know why. But yeah, it actually works. But it has this thing where it maxes out the CPU sometimes, just when it's just only running YouTube. Ken Moss is here. He says, I did get an message yesterday, so the service seems to be working fine. Okay. Yeah, I ended up actually, what I did was I just actually typed out and sent out an extra email because I wasn't really sure if the automation was working or not, and I don't think it was. So I just sent out an email and included what we were going to talk about tonight because I thought that might be better. So I might just have to try and remember to send out an email. Let's see who we've got. I think we've mostly got most of the usual suspects. Mike, my good friend, Mike Neighbor from Peace Valley Audio is here, and so is Roger Blevins. Good to see you. And RJ Hagler is here. And here's the one that has the question, am I contagious? Calling in from Cleveland. Excellent. Kelly says, damn, that is some good music. Awesome. Thank you. Very kind. Yeah, maybe not the best mix ever. Not my mix. I have to admit, I was never really happy with the mix of that record, but it is what it is. And you know, that's kind of one of the reasons why I just decided I would never hire anybody to mix my records again. So after that, but still, the music is good, the songs are good, and a lot of the performances are really outstanding. Like Tim's guitar solo on that song is really, really good. And there are a few really other great performances by Roger Key on tenor sax as well. He crops up on that record, and he's on my last EP from 2016 as well. Let's see. Mike says, when you turn on your speakers, you can hear stuff. Imagine that. So you forgot to turn your speakers on, did you? Yeah, you know what? I have done that. And gone, why do I have no sound? I can see the meters going. Whoops. I can see the meters going, but I can't hear any sound. Why is that? What's going on? Has Studio One got a bug in it? Or none? And it usually turns out I've done something really daft, like I pressed the mute button on the monitor station, and that's why I can't hear any sound. And I go, that's it. Something simple like that usually is the cause, and I feel very stupid when that happens. Bob is here, just Bob. Good to see you, buddy. Rainer, all the way over in Germany, is here. Let's see. Woodbeast is here. He says greets to all greets to all the Lipsham fans. It's so nice that you call yourselves fans. I prefer to call you friends because I know most of you. pretty well from either having taught you or having been involved in critiquing your mixes, or you know, we've collaborated in some way, or we help run one of the Studio One groups or something like that. So I know most of you from that, but there are others that, you know, have just stumbled upon my channel and they really quite like what I do, which is very nice. Bobby Booth is here. Good to see you, mate. No show is complete without Bobby Booth. Kelly says, hell of an intro tune. Yeah, well, I'm glad you like that. Whoopi says, I did not win the lotto, but I have more tickets. Excuse me again. And as I say, Ken Moss is here. And I am going to jump all the way down now because I think we've actually gone through it all. I hope I haven't missed anybody. I don't think I have. Bob T is here, and Errol Balzer. I've completely screwed up your name, I'm sure. Eric Balzer is here. He says, Justin, hope I haven't missed much. No, you've not missed anything at all. We've only just got started. I must find a better position for this laptop, actually. Let's see. Mike is talking about, he says, I have my PC optimized for audio and all that fun stuff. Windows 10, 3.8 gigahertz, i7, quad core, 16 gigs of RAM. I get CPU spikes in Studio One fairly consistent. Max dropout, 256 block size. Why am I spiking? It could be an errant plugin, or a plugin that needs updated, or a plugin by a manufacturer that hasn't released a compatible version that's fully compatible with Studio One. Are you on the latest version of Studio One, actually, Mike? That would be another question. Are you on 4.1? If you're on 4.1, you might find that there might be some plugin manufacturers that haven't quite caught up yet. And some VSTs can do it as well. So you'll maybe need to do a little explorative work and find out why that might be. Especially if, you know, you have a lot of plugins. Like if you have a lot of Slate all over your mixes, they can eat up a lot of processing power, and they can actually cause CPU spiking. They can cause dropouts. They can cause crackles and all that kind of stuff sometimes. I have to be quite sparing and quite specific about when I use a Slate plugin and when I don't, because of that. Because if I do what I would really like to do, which is, you know, have use the Slate plugins to basically turn Studio One into a complete analog studio, I would probably blow up my computer, and I can't do that. So I have to be sparing about how I use them. I have to use them as, you know, kind of like an extra box of paints that I might bring out to bring particular colors to a particular song. That's about all I can do with them. But they are worth their weight in gold. You know, I pay for a year up front is what I do with Slate. And that actually forces me to use them. I think if I was paying just a monthly, just the $15 a month, I don't think I would necessarily make the best use of it. I just maybe, you know, would just kind of let them sit there and forget and use Wave stuff and the native Studio One stuff, and I just wouldn't get stuck in at all. So yeah, so it might be stuff like that, Mike, that you need to look at. Andy Arthur's here as well. He says hello. You guys are calling themselves Lipsters. Okay, I'll take that. If you guys want to call yourselves Lipsters, go ahead. I'll take that. That's cool. If you guys are happy to call yourselves that, that's lovely, as they would say in Yorkshire. Let's see, have I got down to the bottom now? Almost. Mike says he's on 4.1 and he stopped using Slate. Okay. Kelly says, what makes a 4-chord transition to the next what? To the next shelf of the song. I didn't realize songs had shelves. That's interesting. I've never heard that term. Do you mean the next section? Maybe it's predictive text that you've got going on there, Kelly. I don't know. What makes a full chord transition to the next section of a song? Well, it depends. If the next section of the song is in a different key, then you can use a very simple 3-6-2-5-1, with the target being the one of the new key. So, you know, instead of going 3-6-2-5-1 in the key that you're in, so if you're in the key of C, then you would be talking E minor, A minor, D minor, G7, C. Now if you do that, you'll just keep going around infinitely and you'll be stuck and you won't be able to get out of it. So you need to be thinking about, you know, 2-5-1 in the next key. So let's say your next key is going to be, I don't know, D. Then you'd be in C, and then you'd have to think E minor, then A7, and then you're in D. So, and then you're in the key of D, just like that. Now if you want to get back, turn that D major into a D minor, and now you're in the key of C again. So yeah, 2-5-1s. I've got a couple of videos on my YouTube channel that talk about the power of the key change, and I go into those in a bit more detail. It's a 2-part video series. One is on major keys, and the other one's on minor keys. Minor keys are a little bit more involved, a little bit more complicated, but completely possible. I'm going to skip my chair in a bit because I feel like I'm leaning forward too much. Heard better coughs in the cemetery. Andy says, just got done with 2 live sound gigs and finally got some rest. Good for you, mate. And I heard you've been working with Fat Hat, which is very cool. All right, so tonight's subject matter is... what did I say it was called? I sent out an email and told everybody what we're talking about. And it's just escaped my memory what we're talking about. We're talking about the cumulative effect. And you're probably sat there typing out going, cumulative effect. Yes, cumulative effect. What is the cumulative effect? Cumulative effect is kind of things adding up and adding up until they end in a particular result. Usually in a less than desirable result in the case of audio. Although sometimes you can use the I'll start talking now. Sometimes you can use the cumulative effect in a positive way, so you can control it to get to where you want to go. So when we're talking about music, cumulative effect is something you need to be very careful of, especially if you're stacking a lot of instruments. Let's say you've got maybe 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 guitar parts, and you know, they're all kind of complementing each other. How can we avoid the cumulative effect with 7 or 8 different, very complementary, very intricate guitar parts that weave in and out of each other? What can we do to prevent that a cumulative effect building up that causes you a problem when it gets to mixing? So we're talking about the recording period before we've even got to mixing. And actually, I would back up even further and say it starts about thinking about, okay, if you're going to be layering that many guitars, what can we do before we even start recording? So we're talking about arranging the song. What can we do? So let's say you are going to have this guitar choir, and let's say they are acoustic guitars. So you've got 8 acoustic guitar parts. Well, there are things you can do. You could have not all of these guitars play together at the same time. So you can have some guitars in, some guitars out, and that kind of thing. And you use texture, you know, textural contrast between a thick and a thin texture may prevent some of that. Yes, that would definitely go a long way to doing it. But if you're going to use the same guitar for all 8 of those guitar parts, you are going to create yourself a problem. And that problem being that if you're using the same guitar and the same microphone in the same position to record these 8 guitar parts, the problem you're going to create for yourself is that all of those frequencies that come out of the guitar and go into the microphone and are captured by that microphone in exactly the same position, in exactly the same way, just 8 times over, those frequencies are going to build up cumulatively. So you will have good frequencies that build up cumulatively that sound good, but you'll also have a whole bunch of stuff that you don't want at all. Plus also each part is going to start to sound incredibly samey. So there are ways around that even before you start going, oh, I can solve that with an EQ. Yes, you can solve that with an EQ. You can solve that with a process called complementary EQ, which we'll talk about in a wee bit. But you can also go back a couple of steps and say, hey, let's save some trouble in the mixing process and let's have 4 or 5 different guitars. And maybe we'll use 2 or 3 different microphones. And we may capture them in exactly the same way, but we'll have a different microphone that has different tonal characteristics. We'll have different guitars that have different tonal characteristics. And we'll not just pick those guitars at random and assign them to random guitar parts. We'll think about, well, this particular guitar is nice and bright. Maybe this should be the one that carries the majority of the melody. Okay, this one is almost as bright. Well, maybe we could use that as kind of like an additional melody guitar, so that you're not always having the same instrument playing the melody, which can get boring. So if you're an arranger, move the melody around. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people, they'll just have one voice singing the melody all the time, and there'll be nothing else to kind of give your ear a rest, so to speak, from that one voice. So, you know, the different things that you can do by moving the melody around from different instruments means that you keep the listener engaged. So maybe have a bright guitar playing one section, then a much darker, more bottom end heavy guitar play the melody in the next section, perhaps. But also having 4 or 5 different acoustic guitars with different tonal characteristics captured by different microphones, maybe recorded in a different place in your room each time, means that you are going to solve a lot of those cumulative build-ups before you even get to mixing, because you'll have a lot of different tonal characteristics going on that complement each other. Hopefully, if you've kind of thought about it and thought about matching a guitar to a microphone, matching a guitar to a particular part that it's going to play. So if you think that part through very, 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 very carefully, the arrangement part very, very, very carefully, before you even get to sitting in front of the microphone with the microphone plugged in, ready to play your guitar part, think that bit through first and decide how that's going to go down and what, maximize the sound of each guitar. And the same with, if you're going to do a saxophone section. The best sounding saxophone sections are where not only do you have different sax players in the section, but they're all playing a different brand of saxophone with different mouthpieces and different reeds. They all make a big difference. And the thing that you end up with is something that the whole saxophone section, 3 altos, 2 tenors, maybe a soprano and a baritone sax. In your saxophone section, not only are they all going to sound different because they have different ranges and therefore they have a different timbre, but they'll also all sound different. Like your 3 altos will sound different because each sax player is playing a different brand of alto sax and they've all got a different mouthpiece. Maybe your lead alto player is playing with a metal mouthpiece, maybe a Dave Godala mouthpiece, and maybe, your second alto player is playing a rubber mouthpiece, and maybe your third alto is playing with one of those carbon mouthpieces, maybe, and maybe your lead player plays with Van Doren reeds, and your other 2 play with Rico Royales, and maybe your lead player plays with a 3 reed, and the others play with a 2 and a 2.5. You're going to get contrast there. Especially if one saxophone is kind of a more silver color and the other one is definitely more kind of gold lacquered. You're going to get different tonal contrasts there. And if you capture those with different microphones, again, you're going to prevent the cumulative build-up. So when it comes to mixing, how do we avoid the cumulative build-up? Well, it starts with using filtering, to be honest, in my opinion. I'm just going to check over the chat here and just see what you guys are talking about. Just next session, Kelly's saying, yeah, okay. Next transition, maybe to another key. Yeah. Change tonality or progression or tempo. Yes. All of those are good transitions to another section. You know, thing is, I would tend to suggest leave a key change to somewhere near the end of the song, like for your final chorus. I know it's a little bit of a cliche, and everybody does it that way. You know, but everybody also does a key change up. Well, who says you have to do a key change up? You could do a key change down, and then use the upper register of the vocalist's range to create something different there as well. So the melody might go up, but the key center moves down, maybe. So different contrasts, different things like that you can do. Alrighty, so when we get to mixing, let's see, let's go over to here. Let's go over to Studio One. How do we avoid the cumulative effect? Starts off with filtering. Getting out the low end that you don't need in each of your tracks. I mean, this is all basic stuff, so a lot of you guys are already going to know this. You're going to sit here going, yeah, I know this. But you know what? Not everybody does. And not everybody that's in the chat maybe knows this. And maybe not everybody knows that it can be dead easy to get yourself unstuck. All it takes is a little boost at 2K on this track, a little boost at 2K here, and then maybe I'll go down and I do a little boost at 2K here, 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 a little boost at 2. Do you see what I'm saying? And it's just like I've gone all the way down these 5, 6, 7 channels on my mixer and I've given everybody a slight boost at 2K. Well, what's going to end up is I'm going to have a lot of 2K in my master bus. And the whole mix is going to sound a little bit, well, maybe even not even a little bit. It may even sound quite considerably harsh. Well, I could solve that by going, oh, let's just slap an EQ on the mix bus and pull out 2K. Well, yeah, you could do it that way. But I don't think that really solves your harshness problem. I think you'll end up compromising that upper mid area of your mix if you do that. I think you need to go back through your mix and look at your instruments, look at maybe your horns here. Now I've just high pass filtered all of these because these didn't really need anything else. But let's say I mean I've got a trumpet and a tenor sax in this, so I haven't got a huge horn section, but let's say I had a lot of saxes here. I would be doing something called complementary EQ. So if I'm going to boost on one guitar, let's say my left hand guitar, let's say I've got 2 guitars, my left hand guitar, my right hand guitar. On my left hand guitar, I'm going to boost at 3.5K. Well, on my other guitar, I'm going to cut at 3.5K. And let's say I high pass filter at 100 here. Well, maybe I'll high pass filter a little bit higher on this one. Or maybe on this guy over here, I'll do a boost at I don't know, 550, let's say. Let's say I want to add a little bit of sparkle. So a little bit of upper sparkle. So a little bit of 550. Well, on my other guitar, I'm going to cut at that point. And usually I'll do this in mono. I will smack that mono button. And then I will get to work on those 2 guitar parts. And I will use EQ, notching EQ, filtering EQ, cutting on one, boosting on the other, all those kind of things to end up with a sound that is complementary and whereby even with the mono button engaged I can hear both of them. And that's one way that you can avoid the cumulative effect with EQ, is making sure as you go down your channels as you're mixing, and this is actually a good chunk of the reason why I don't start with my individual channels. I start with my mix bus and then I work through my buses and then I go to individual channels if they need it. because I know if I do the bulk of my mixing over here, then I'm not going to have so much of a cumulative effect building up over here, which is not going to be great. Now, you can do the same with compression. If you have too much fast attack compression going on, then you're going to end up, even if you know the fast attack isn't actually too terribly tremendously fast. Let's say, I don't know, 3 milliseconds, 3-4 milliseconds. And let's say you start doing this all the way down the line of your mix. Well, your mix is going to end up with not a lot of life to it, because too much of the transient is being removed, and as you go down the line, you end up with too much. Same with, you know, the other way around, too slow a compression, too slow an attack. And you can do the same with release. You know, you can have the release, every release set to the middle, set to 12 o'clock, 50%, and you end up with all the compressors releasing at exactly the same time. And that can create just a weird effect, which you don't want. A weird, unnatural effect that you don't want. So you want to use compression to help bring things forward that you want to bring forward, and to push back elements that you want to sit further back in the mix. That's how I use compression, and I use attack and release to do that primarily. That's my strategy with that. But again, you know, if you're using bus compression a lot, one of the ways in which you can get a build up quickly is if you have 5 or 6 dB of compression over here on your lead vocal track, and then on your bus you've got 4 or 5 dB of compression going on over here, and it can build up pretty fast. Before you know it, you've got, you know, 2 compressors over here doing 2-3 dB each. Well, that's going to be 6 dB of compression already. And then your bus compressor over here doing another 3 dB. Well, that's 9 dBs of compression on your vocal. Now, if the song warrants it, and it's a particularly heavy song or a particularly aggressive song, then yes, maybe 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 dB of compression is going to suit that song perfectly. Excuse me. Now, in that case, cumulative effect can be really, really handy. Instead of having one compressor doing 15 dB of compression and slamming on your vocal in a not very subtle fashion, cumulative effect can actually be your friend when it comes to compression, particularly when it comes to compressing things like drums and vocals, because you can have a couple of compressors, maybe a fast attack compressor going into a slow attack compressor, each one doing about 3 dB. And then you can, you know, on your bus compressor have one that's kind of in the middle. It's a medium compressor. Hang on just a sec. I could hear my CPU going absolutely bonkers, and I wanted to find out what that was, but it's okay. I think it's my laptop going crazy. So yeah, so cumulative effect with compression can be your friend if you do it right. So you are doing a little bit of compression at each stage. So at each stage on your vocal channel, and then on your bus channels at each stage. And even with parallel compression, that is another stage of compression. So even if you're doing a whole ton of compression on your parallel channel, the thing with the parallel channel is that then you would tuck that underneath and give a little bit of perceived extra volume and extra girth and excitement. So that's where cumulative effect can be your friend if you do it right, but it can also be your foe if you're not careful about how much compression is being done at each stage. If you're only working with one compressor, okay, that's fine, but don't overcook it on that one compressor. So again, this is genre dependent, you know, program dependent is what I would say. So if you're working with very aggressive heavy metal, then yeah, you're going to use a lot of compression. And if that's the case, do it in stages so that the compression has the desired effect, but it sounds pretty transparent, so you can't actually hear the compressors at work. would be my advice. So there you go. So that was really what I wanted to talk about, was because it's something that can be your friend, but it can also be your enemy, and it can start out as your friend and then very quickly turn without you really realizing if you're not paying attention when it comes to mixing. But as I say, a lot of the kind of tonality side of things, the tonal elements of it, you can address some of those even before you get to mixing, and that means you're not having to reach for a lot of EQing, because you're doing that a lot up front by deciding on instrumentation, what those instruments are going to play or what those voices are going to be. Like, for example, if you're doing backing vocals, to be honest, on my songs, I do a lot of my backing vocals myself. So the music you heard at the start there, Sacred Cow, all of those backing vocals, that was me singing harmonies against myself. I did a stack of 6 voices of myself singing against myself, and some of those harmonies are really close. So, you know, at points I was singing a semitone away from the previous the previous take that I'd done. So I was literally layering them. That's how I did them. I just stood in front of my mic and just did one pass with one part, then I did the next pass with the next part, and that's how I built up those backing vocals. But that's all my voice, so, you know, that's my voice multiplied by 6. So it's kind of like all the issues that my voice has multiplied by 6. So, you know, some of those is, well, my voice has a little bit of a nasally quality to it. You know, I have just a little bit of a lisp, which I work very hard at eradicating from my speech and my singing, but it's there. So I have those things to deal with. So when I'm stacking my own voice, I have to be real careful about how I do that. So sometimes I stand further away from the mic. The lower parts, I'll get a little more up close and make, I'll take advantage of the proximity effect and use the fact that you can generate quite a lot more low end and quite a lot more warmth when you're close up and personal to the microphone. And then for the higher parts, I'll back up, because I want the higher parts to be thinned out quite a lot more. So you can, by way of how you position yourself in front of the mic, you can deal with a lot of those issues. But things like the nasaliness and sibilance, that kind of stuff, that's going to be multiplied over the number of vocal tracks that you've got. So yes, you could slap a de-esser across all of those. You could do that. But why not do a little bit of complementary EQ? And also, I would suggest using a different EQ on each voice as well. Use the EQ not just as something where you are attenuating and boosting frequencies in a vocal track, but you're using the EQ as a tone color as well. So you make sure you find an EQ that is going to complement that particular part, that particular voice. That would be my advice, and that's again another way in which you can overcome the negative side of the cumulative effect, is by having a different EQ. So don't always use the same EQ. Yes, the Pro EQ in Studio One is a fantastic EQ. It's one of the best native EQs out there, in my opinion. And as you can see in this song, I have used it a lot. But this was strictly a stock plug-in record. This was. I set out when I made my my EP a couple of years ago. One of the things I did was I wanted to make an EP where I only used 4 plugins. So that's what I did. 1 EQ, 1 compressor, 1 reverb, and 1 delay, and that was it. That was an enforced limitation upon myself to see if I could actually make a record with just 4 plugins. And so I did. And, you know, this is kind of the song that we're looking at here that we've not played yet, is the result of that. So I'm using a lot of Pro EQ here. Now, the Pro EQ is great because it's really transparent, but, you know, there are other alternatives out there that will give you some other color and maybe a little bit of saturation and stuff. Okay, I'm going to stop talking now so that I don't destroy my voice, at least for a little bit, and I'm going to look at your questions. And I'm going to go back over here to that button there. Okay, hello again. Sorry, I did all of that talking with you just looking at my channels. All right. Just Bob says, 2 guitarists playing corresponding major and minor keys or scales. Ooh, a little bit of bitonality. That could be interesting. Yeah, 8 guitarists playing specific key points of a chord. Yes, if you listen to Steely Dan's Asia, that's exactly what they did. And the reason why they did it? Well, it's because Donald and Walter's voicings for the chord changes of that song, they're not exactly easy to play on one guitar because they're either really, really close and you have to screw your hand up to play them, or you're having to, you know, impossibly stretch your hand, and it's really hard to play. So, so what they did with Asia was they layered up, I think 5 or 6 guitars playing two strings each time, or sometimes even just a single string each time, to get the and it actually makes an interesting sound texturally, because you end up with kind of like guitars that are kind of played in the style of kind of like a horn section or something, you know, maybe like a brass, maybe like trombones, something like that. I mean, they don't obviously sound like trombones, but they are performing that kind of function in a big band setting, you know. Kelly says that was deep info. That's very kind of you to say so. Just Bob says, when, for example, a sax player hits a high note that wasn't planned for, but becomes the moment that ties it all together, how do you keep that live feel, not over EQ or over compress? Yeah, if somebody does go for a high note and it, you know, they go for a particular line that's not planned, and it just pours out the instrument, and you capture that with the microphone. Treat that line with care. Treat that note with care. But you know, also make sure that you have your performer positioned in such a way that there is headroom where they are with the microphone. So if they want to play a little bit louder and dig into if they are a sax player, bite down on the reed a little bit more and open up into altissimo register a little bit more, maybe even split the note. If they're going to go for that, make sure that you have the microphone positioned in such a way that you're going to get a good capture whether they're playing loudly or quietly, and you're not going to overload the microphone, or you're not going to overload the preamp. So think about that. Think about mic placement first of all, so that you are prepared for that kind of eventuality, for something like that happening. Even if it does, even if it doesn't, you are okay. You've captured that properly. Then, you know, you take care of the compression by default, so to speak, because you have them placed a safe distance away from the microphone. It's not going to overload. You can contain it, and you can use a smoother compressor. You know, rather than something that slams down on it, you can use a smoother compressor on that kind of a performance. You know, you can use an opto compressor if you want, or you know, or a tube style compressor might work quite nicely on a saxophone played like that, because it will compress nice and smoothly, and in a way that sounds nice, that gives it some warmth and some character. But you don't really hear the compressor compressing. You just hear that the volume of that note being contained a bit, pegged back a bit. So that would be what I would suggest there. When you feel the notes, not just hear the note. Yes, okay. Kelly says that was deep info. Thank you. Kelly says, like having one voice, like one instrument, one reed, one mic. I bet you've dealt with that and handle it. Well, interesting you should say that. My EP, belonging to tomorrow, everything was recorded with one interface, an audio box USB, with one microphone. This guy. So all the vocals were done with that. The sax solos were done with that. The guitar solos and everything else were all done with the audio box USB. Everything was done with it. The keyboard parts all done with the audio box USB. The only time that stuff wasn't done with the audio box USB was when we recorded drums. We recorded drums in a local church, and I went for really minimal miking. I went for a couple of overheads and a kick drum mic, 3 mics, and we ran that into a mixer, and then we took the and I balanced those on the mixer and did a little bit of broad EQ on the mixer, and then I ran the outputs, the main outputs of that mixer into the audio box, which went into Studio One, and it actually worked reasonably well. I got reasonably good quality recordings. I had to do a little bit of drum replacement here and there. You know, if the snare drum didn't cut particularly well, then we would do that. But for the most part, that's what we did. So I have handled that before. Omar is here. Omar, good to see you. I believe you are new to my show, so welcome, and I hope you're enjoying it so far. How do I change the color of the channels on the mixing board? That's easy to show you. I can just take you briefly back to Studio One for that. And in Studio One, let's say, I have to get my mouse on the right screen. Still haven't got used to this whole 2-screen thing. Let's say I want to change these guys here to the same color. At the moment, they're kind of this off yellow, but let's say I want to make these, oh, I don't know. So the first thing I want to do is let's just pick a random color. Okay, let's say we decide to make these all pink for whatever reason. I'm going to select the first one. I'm going to hold Shift on my keyboard and select the last one. So these 3 are now highlighted. And then I go down to where it says BV1, or I just pick any channel, doesn't really matter. And then I click at the bottom here, and this color palette opens up. And then this is where you guys have to help me out. Where's pink? There it is. Okay, so I now click the pink square, boing, and now all 3 of those channels are pink, which is garish. Backing vocal channels should not be pink, like ever. And if you decide you don't like that and you would like to go back to the previous color, you can also do Control Z and it'll get you back. Alright, so that's how you change the colors. I recommend, even if you're not doing this at the moment, I recommend, seriously recommend, you have a color scheme for your mixer view, as you can see I have here. It makes finding your, I mean, this is not a particularly big song. It doesn't have a big track count. I think we've only got, let's see, yeah, we've got 14 channels of audio. So it's not great, it's not particularly massive, but you know, have things in grouped together in a color that works, that's easily identifiable, you know, like this little horn section thing here, trumpet, tenor sax, and then these 2 trumpet falls, which only actually occur at the very end of the song. So essentially it's just trumpet and tenor sax. I've made them green. I'm not using green anywhere else in the song, so keep them green. Soprano sax solo here, I've made this kind of like a, I wouldn't know what color that really is. It's kind of an off red kind of color. Because I want this guy to stand out, because it's the only other featured instrument other than the vocal. And then rhythm, so I have my vocals kind of a yellow color. Lead vocals are bright yellow. Backing vocals are an off yellow. Horns tend to be green. Then we get into the rhythm section. So I have rhythm section instruments, piano, electric piano, and bass as kind of like this kind of light sky bluey kind of color, and then drums are a kind of darker, richer blue. Reverb and delay channels, I'll make these white, and then bus channels are red, and the main out is white. Find a color scheme that appeals to you. I like simple colors, but you can go crazy, and you can have it like, I don't know, the French tricolor if you want, or you could have it, you know, in the German flag colors if you want. Whatever suits you, whatever appeals to you. You know, if a particular instrument you think, hey, that has a particular color for me, go for it. For some people, drums are yellow. For me, they're not. They're kind of blue. Pick a color and kind of stick to it. And so that's how you do that. So I'm going to go back now. There we go. And we got a couple of donations. Just Bob with $2 and Kelly with $2 as well. That's very kind of you guys. Thank you very much. So I hope that answers your question. Pink for female vocals says low ends. Good to see you, low ends. Pink for female vocals. Yeah. I think some female vocalists might be upset by that, but I don't think there are any females in the room tonight. So so there we go. So we've got about 10 minutes or so left. Let me just pause for a swig. Just Bob is apologizing. Or at least he was. He retracted it. But he did. He apologized and said, sorry, it isn't anymore. You know what, Bob? Really? Anything that you guys donate to me means a lot to me. Even if you only donate 1 cent each, it means a lot to me. Because it means that you value what I do. And that's important to me. So, you know, if you get out of my Sunday night lives something useful, you know, feel free to chuck $1 in the tin on the way out. You know, I appreciate that kind of stuff. Or send me a PayPal. You know, you don't have to. There's no obligation. I'm not saying please, you know, pay on the way out or whatever. Or, you know, hey, this live stream is going to cost you $5. No. No, there's no compulsion. If you want to donate, donate. If you don't want to donate, don't. It's fine. You know, I do these live streams because I enjoy doing them and because hopefully you guys get something out of them. You know, that's what it's all about as far as I'm concerned. So let's see. Let's go to the other screen here and scroll down and see what we have. We have 16 people watching, which is pretty cool. And I appreciate every single one of you. Kelly says, Johnny, I feel kind of guilty for keeping you. It sounds like you need to crawl under a blanket. Yeah, I kind of do need to crawl under a blanket. But you know what? I do these because they're fun. And talking to you guys is fun. I am feeling pretty ghastly. I've been feeling pretty ghastly for 2 whole weeks. It's not been at all fun, which is why you've not seen a video made this week. In fact, you've not seen a video made for the last 2 weeks. And that's why, because I've not been able to stop sneezing, coughing, and all of that entertaining stuff for long enough to be able to talk into a microphone without having to do enormous amounts of editing. And I hate editing, so editing is no fun. So I'd rather try and get something done in kind of one unspoiled take. And that's how I do my videos, because I don't like editing. So, and yeah, and I've just been, my head's been far too sore, my chest has been far too sore to really get out of, you know, spend more than, you know, half an hour out of bed. So I am on the mend, and you know, my head is much clearer now. It's just kind of all sitting on my chest now, which is annoying to say the least. But I do this because I enjoy it, guys. It's great fun. Mike says 21 watches was the high. Well, that's very cool. 21 the high. That's it. I like that. No, just Bob, it didn't stay. You did retract it, but I'm a very fast reader. I take the whole screen in one go. So so yeah, so I saw it before you did that. But that's okay. If you know, if you're embarrassed by the fact that I read it out publicly, I apologize. Mike says video editing isn't fun. Audio isn't so bad. Video sucks. Yeah, video is annoying because it takes longer than I think mixing does. You know, for every minute of a video that I shoot, it seems to take 5 minutes to then edit that minute, if you follow. Errol says you could do a good baritone. At the moment I could. I'm not a baritone. I'm nowhere near a baritone. I am up the other way. I sing tenor and countertenor. So in fact, this Christmas for the choir in my church, we have a choir that performs at Christmas, and I'm going to be singing tenor and alto this Christmas because we are short of altos. We have a lot of women sopranos, but we've only got like 3 altos. And I know all the parts for all of the songs that we're doing. Because that's just me. I just learn all of the parts. So I can help the alto ladies out, and I can sing with the tenors as well. So I'm going to be singing 2 parts on each of the songs this year. So it's going to be lots of fun. Providing by that point all of this is all cleared and I'm back to my full extended register. That'd be nice. Mike says it's 10 minutes of editing for every usable minute. Yes, sometimes it can be like that, that's for sure. We've got about 3 minutes to go, and Bob T has just dropped in a donation of $5. Thank you so much, Bob. I really appreciate that. So that's 5, 6, 7, 8. And Kelly with a $10 donation. Oh my goodness me, you guys are outrageous. You guys are awesome. I've kind of lost count of the donations now. But thank you so very much, everybody. I really appreciate you all. And I really appreciate you guys coming to my streams. A lot of you are here every week without fail, and you're in the Songwriting Simplified show I do with Jonny Gibe on Wednesdays. You guys are there without fail. And I know Jonny really values you guys, and I really value you guys as well. You guys, you know, you do a lot for both of us, even, you know, as we kind of hopefully teach you stuff that you can put into practice in your songs, in your mixes, whether you're mixing your own work or somebody else's work. Hopefully the stuff that we teach you helps you to get better at the craft of mixing and the craft of recording, or I should say the art of recording, the craft of mixing and the art of mastering. I hope that what we do really helps you guys, and certainly I hope that what I do helps you guys, and I really appreciate you guys being regulars and being subscribers and being on my email list. It's awesome. I really appreciate you guys, as I keep saying over and again, because I'm overwhelmed by you lot. And kind of on that note, I'm gonna begin to wrap this up, and just to let you know, I am in the throes of building something really cool, which I'm hoping is going to kind of raise the bar of what I do, and you know, I'm trying to build a platform for putting all my content out in one place, that you can all have access to. And there's going to be a subscription for it, and I think I mentioned a VIP thing that I've been working on with Rich Westfall for a while. That's still kind of a thing that we're doing. We're building a forum. We're still working on that. I'm working with another guy at the moment here in the UK, and we're building something that's going to supplement that, which is going to come pretty soon, actually. We're hoping to have that ready before the new year, I hope. We're going to have to see how the building of it goes, because we're using tools that are very, very cool. It's a bit of investment, but I'm hoping that it's investment into you guys and providing you guys with a really, really cool place to not just get information and get my stuff, but also hopefully a place where you can all gather as well as a little community, and hopefully we can build this community into something much bigger, where we can all help each other out, we can all support each other, encourage each other, work with each other, share with each other. That's kind of what I'm trying to build. So I'll let you know some more details on that as soon as I have them. At the moment there's not much to talk about, but probably in the next few weeks there'll be a little bit more to talk about. And hopefully as we speed in towards Christmas, I might actually be able to have something to give you a sneak preview of. And if you guys are up for it, then when we launch it, you guys that are on my email list will be the first to not only know about it, but you'll also be the first to see it, because I will be doing a private live stream for my email list folks, and I will be emailing out just to you guys a link to that private live stream, and in that private live stream I will give you a sneak peek at this thing that I'm talking about. So if you're up for that, that'd be cool. And Just Bob with have I already seen that one before? Just Bob with a $10 donation. That's awesome. He says, no embarrassment, Johnny. I'm on my phone. Might have deleted by accident. Oh, that's cool, mate. Okay. I appreciate that. Mike says, I hope it makes you money. Yeah, that's the hope as well. That's the plan. And basically what I'm going to be doing with the money that I get from it is it's going to enable me to build more stuff for you guys. More products. Better products. And stuff that is really going to help you get better and better and better and better and better at what you do. That's my plan. So there's going to be, I'll just give you a little heads up, okay? So there's going to be a music theory class. It's going to have 3 levels. It's going to have a beginner level, an intermediate level, and an advanced level. So if you feel you're at any of those levels, you can jump straight in, or you could do them sequentially and start with the beginner course, then go into the intermediate, and then go into the advanced course. That's just one of the things that's going to be there. There's going to be a mixing course where you will learn my methodology for mixing, and you can take everything that I know about mixing and how I mix and make it your own and do your own thing with that methodology. I think it's a place to start. And it's something you can build on top of. There's going to be a mastering course on there as well. There's going to be a session work course there as well. So learning how to do session work from home, that kind of stuff. How to get gigs doing session work, that kind of thing. Because I get quite a few gigs doing session work from here in this studio. And things like I work on other people's records all over the world. I've done a couple of film scores, those kind of things, how you build contacts, that kind of stuff. So all of that is going to be on this new thing, as it's going to be called at the moment. But as I say, I'll let you know more about that as we go. And we are past 1 a.m. folks, so I'm going to wrap it up there. And I'm going to say a very big thank you to everybody for coming. You guys are awesome. And thank you so much once again from the bottom of my heart for all the donations. And Bobby Booth says, yeah, I need the mixing course. Bobby, that's cool, man. And your mixes are already pretty good. But I'm glad you still want to learn. That's awesome. Having a teachable heart is, I think, the first biggest step you can make to being successful in the music business, is having a teachable heart. Keep that teachable heart, even if you rise to become, a Grammy Award winning superstar mix engineer. Make sure you've always got that teachable heart, that sense of humility, because it'll stand you in good stead. And, you know, great people are, you know, the greatest people in the world are people who are humble, in my opinion. People who are arrogant, yeah, don't have any time for those people. But people who are humble, who are still teachable, even if they are great people and have a status and a presence and they've got awards and accolades, if they're still teachable and they can learn from anybody, they are great people. And those are the kind of people I want to hang out with. All right, there we go, folks. That's what I'm going to finish with. And I will speak to you all on Wednesday at Songwriting Simplified. Bye for now. Actually, I might even just play you a little bit more of that music I was playing earlier. Why not?
Dream of a knight riding in shining armor. Then it got jaded by nightmares of snake-eyed charmers. Inhaled the light, embracing the dark neon rain. In a mind's eye, she hears a hopeful refrain. Sundown Susie, the child of the night. An after hours doozy, but now she's seen the light. The reapers no more surround her, the floodlights of such grace. Through the darkly mirror, she now beholds his face. Her dream fulfilled of a knight riding into her life, giving her strength, expose the dark to his bright light. This grace a jailbreak, freedom from all that's ensnared. With open eyes, she hears her long for refrain. Here's to sundown Susie, the child of the night. An after hours doozy, but now she's seen the light. The reapers no more surround her, the floodlights of such grace. Through the darkly mirror, she now beholds his face.